Welcome to the Slaughterhouse. Let go of my legs, sucker! Let go of my legs, sucker! Space Commander. Space Commander. Space Commander. Space Commander. Space Commander. Space Commander. Space Commander, Space Commander, Space Commander.
If that song doesn't get stuck in your head now. Good morning, Space Commander, or good evening, I suppose, for you over in the stratosphere.
Yep, we're on UK time in the space station, so it's evening over here. It's also, we try to simulate the Earth seasons too. So all the heating's cranked up at the moment because it's summertime down in England. So I've got my summertime version of the uniform on, short sleeves.
Oh yes.
But yeah, it's morning where you are. So good morning, Sergeant Zazel. How are you, sir?
Oh, good, thanks. Good. It's a little bit cold, but in this corner that I record in, it does get a bit hot. So ordinarily, in this sort of temperature, I'd wear a hoodie or something. But we've got a few people in the chat. We got the Canuck. Hello, world. Very pleased to be first. Thank you for watching. And we have Burnsy, baby. Have fun, fellas.
Hey,
we will.
That's Mrs. Space Commander. What are you doing up?
Thanks for joining in.
I thought she'd be asleep by now.
Did you finish all your chores before you jumped on? Maybe she's checking up on you.
Actually, I've made more of a mess getting ready this week than in any previous episode. I'm going to be up all night sorting this mess out. Let's go live, he says. Let's go live. We'll do it live. No, let's not do it live.
I was a little worried because you left it right to the line. I was like, maybe it's called incoming transmission, and the transmission hasn't come in yet. But yeah. Oh, look, Treasures for Trigger is with us. Morning, Commanders from Planet Japan.
Hey.
I've been really enjoying Treasure for Trigger's channel. I've always enjoyed it, but now he's going out and about and checking out places that I know I'll never get to. So I get to travel through his channel. So definitely go and check that out. Joe Fest incoming. Yes, it is. It's not far off. I don't think we're going to make it. Are we, Space Commander?
I can barely make it to my own show on time.
Well, this is your show. And so I'm glad that you made it to your show. Otherwise, I would have had to fumble around. I've left the Slaughterhouse logo in the top corner just for the UK fans. But I wanted to...
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, mate. You're welcome. I wanted to have a chat today specifically. That's why I played the video earlier from Magnificent Kaboom. I'll play that again later too. He does some great animation, and he's also responsible for the logo on your hat there. So yeah, big shout out to Magnificent Kaboom. Sean says, "Yo Joe, guys from Texas. Yo Joe in full force."
Yo Joe and full force. I've got a little guy here who was from Cincinnati, Ohio, but he in the comic books he worked in Texas.
Oh, there you go.
Space Commander, the original Space Commander there, Sky Raider himself. So a fellow Texan after a fashion.
Well, I'm going to start reading after this weekend. I've got some editing of some videos to finish up this weekend, but after that, I'm going to start getting into the comic books so that we can have a bit more of a detailed discussion around the story behind Action Force. and learn some more about the characters there. So that'll probably be our next episode. We'll deep dive, or what is it when you dive down from outer space?
Oh well, there's a couple of different ways. There's stratospheric skydiving.
Yeah.
But if obviously you have to wear your spacesuit to do that. But if you really want to show off, you do an orbital skydive. This is where you jump out of your spacecraft or your space station or your capsule, and you actually orbit the entire planet before you make your descent through the stratosphere.
All right, cool.
Now,
well, we'll do an orbital skydive into Action Force comics for next time. But the reason why I played that excellent, magnificent Kaboom animation was because I wanted to have a chat about this character specifically. Well, sorry, this character specifically. Oh, wait, hang on. This character specifically.
How about
Kraken.
How about this character specifically?
These characters specifically.
There you go. There's your other three chums. You see, not so far away after all.
Not that far away.
They're not that far away.
The good thing about this show is that we can play toys together, but we can be across the pond and across the stratosphere and still hang out and still play toys. Because I have questions about this guy. I have a lot of questions about this guy. But this guy didn't. We haven't even gotten through the entire box, I don't think. Oop, there we are. Entire box. Where is it? We haven't gotten through this entire box of Action Force yet. I'm almost certain we've still got a layer at the bottom of this box to go through. But this came in a separate care package. With a vehicle, which I've got over there, which we'll have a look at another time. But let's, just for the fun of it, let's play Magnificent Kaboom's animation one more time.
Welcome to the Slaughterhouse.
Let go of my legs, sucker. Let go of my legs, sucker.
It's very creative.
Yeah, he's really great. Yeah, sorry. It's very important to do in space when you're boiling hot.
Yeah.
and also when you occasionally remember we're doing it live.
Right. Yeah. So is it the solar flares that are heating up your space capsule? Was it?
Oh, did you see that the last video you put up where we were talking and the wonderful Mark Potter was there, and of course Sergeant Slaughter himself was there, and yeah, my face was getting brighter and brighter and brighter and redder and redder and redder with every passing second until eventually I had to fight the solar flares and close the blast shield. So.
Well, part of your charm is that you're on a delay, and sometimes even then the delay is makes you crash. But we got another comment from Treasure for Trigger. Love Magnificent Kaboom's work. Top shelf. Speaking of top shelf, we have the man himself, Magnificent Kaboom. Top shelf. Thanks. Out of uniform, soldier. Still kind of in uniform.
This is the summer uniform.
Yeah.
With the short sleeves.
So the correct pronunciation is Kraken, right? Like the mythological creature.
Yeah, I guess it I guess it doesn't really matter how you say it. Wasn't it one of those pirate films with the wonderful Johnny Depp? They were kind of discussing the pronunciation of the word Kraken. So I guess it doesn't really. I guess it doesn't really matter how you say it. However, on this cassette here, which is the one where they were introduced, Baron's Revenge, we have Black Major, who's Baron Ironblood's right-hand man. The actor had this big, gruff, burly voice. He sounded great, and he was explaining to Z-Force. He was threatening Z-Force, and Z-Force had never seen these green critters before, and so the Black Major explained that He's a Kraken, he said. So
Kraken,
he pronounces it Kraken.
We've got Kraken, right. Time to get interstellar with Space Commander. Yep. One of my favorite hangouts is hanging out with Space Commander.
Kaboom!
Well done. Yep. Never
that's right, yeah.
Never not in some form of Action Force Space Commander outfit. I'm wearing my go-to Sarge shirt now that I got from Kelly and Sarge. It came already with potato chip grease stain, so I don't feel so bad if I get more on there.
Fantastic. Yeah, that was pretty cool when my solar batteries ran flat during the last video. But I was able to watch the part that I was no longer available for, and it was really cool. You know, you and Sarge and Mark talking about how close, even though we're all quite distant geographically speaking, you know,
Right.
we'll become like a tight little group of friends. And so for your childhood hero and his daughter to send you a shirt personally all the way to Oz, that was pretty cool. So, well done.
I
mate.
thought so. Yeah. Oh, thanks, buddy. Yeah. No, well, yeah. Thanks to them. This shirt came out of the vault. This was an original one that was printed for an event that Sarge was a part of. They've since made copies of it, but as Sarge tells it, this came out of his personal collection and now sits proudly on my very tight. I gotta start working out.
My plan is just to sweat the weight off over the next few
That's
weeks.
not a bad idea. Yeah. I need a few more solar flares. You think it'd be hot enough in Australia just to sweat it off for me? So let's go. The Kraken.
Kraken.
This guy, I don't understand. Just before I get into any of the actual real detail behind this guy, I just want to give my I guess what would the word be? I haven't formed any opinion on the character because I don't really know it. But just looking at everything that I've pulled out of this box so far, which is very military heavy, to come out and find this guy is legitimately part of Action Force with the logo on there for Red Shadows, a dagger of some skin-colored handle there for the dagger, a full uniform. It just, I don't know how this fits in to a military toy line, and it just sort of looks like if someone told me that this was a Star Wars figure, I'd believe it, right? With the 5 points of articulation, the tightly fit, snug outfit. Just even Star Trek, I think I mentioned before, it looks like the Gorn from
absolutely, yeah.
I got another comment from Magnificent Kaboom. Great shirts. The Kraken speaks in a whisper yell, similar to Gorn in Star Trek. There you go, Gorn. I'm glad I was saying.
Yes.
I don't know too much about the Gorn other than watching William Shatner in that classic fight with the Gorn.
Well, that classic episode, that episode was actually with Kirk and the Gorn. That was the first time human beings and Gorn had met in person. Now, some people will tell you that the Gorn was hanging out in Star Trek with the humans years before that, but those people are wrong, and they're watching some show which isn't Star Trek.
Right.
Just because someone's come along and put the words Star Trek at the beginning of the show doesn't make the show Star Trek. Okay.
All right.
Star Trek is what Gene Roddenberry produced. That's what Gene Roddenberry came up with. That is Star Trek. Yeah. And anything that contradicts that is toilet paper. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now.
He looks like a Dino Rider's Rulon. He does. Yeah, he does. Much taller. But he's got great detail on that skin with the scales. This is a very well done character.
But I don't know. He initially was a mail away character,
Oh,
And
right.
for them to, as you say, for them to put so much detail into a mail away character. I remember my older brother. We sent away, or he sent away for the Z Force Commander, which is one of the figures we've looked at previously.
Yep.
And he arrived, no problem. And then a short time later, my brother got another parcel through the post, and then it was a letter saying, dear Action Force fans, something like that. Thank you for taking part in our Z Force Commander giveaway, but unfortunately we've run out of the figure, so we're sending you a replacement figure instead. And we were thinking, well, we've already received the figure. We haven't not received it. So we actually ended up getting two figures. The other figure they sent was Skeletron. And Skeletron looks fantastic. The skull face and the kind of the cybernetics built into the skull. The character was originally going to be called Robo Skull, but that name ended up being used for something else.
Right.
So we had Skeletron arrive as a replacement for the figure he'd already received. The only trouble is with Skeletron, his limbs were so thin and spindly and so kind of rubbery and flexible. We kind of got the feeling, was this just something they sort of rushed into production to kind of make up for the shortfall of all the Z Force commanders that they've run out of? Like I say, the character looks great backstory for Skeletron, but the toy itself, we kind of felt maybe it was like a last minute sort of thing. But not so with this mail away figure. As you say, the amount of detail. He originally came with like a small trident weapon. That it wasn't like a huge trident like you'd see in like Jason and the Argonauts or something like that. It was only a small trident. Right. But he also came with a net. A net. It looks like a fishing net, but that's kind of appropriate for this guy. As you say, he's got the knife built into the mold there on his ankle. Great uniform. As you can see, the Red Shadows logo, nice and bright and clearly printed on the chest, and lots of detail. Lots of detail in the face sculpt. Look at the way the mouth is sculpted, nice and deep. Looks like Godzilla's baby brother or something,
Right.
So
it's got a little bit of a smile going on if you look at it from the side.
Yeah. A lot of effort went into this guy.
With the eyes slightly drooping. I think I've woken up with a hangover similar to this. A little green around the gills. A little green around the gills. The eyes were a bit droopy. But I was like, I had a good time. Yeah, I had a good time.
And the award for gag of the evening goes to Cecil.
I'm seeing double. Hang on, I'm seeing double. It's been a bigger night than I thought. I'm seeing triple. Oh, no. That's a fun night out. This is the hangover right here.
Careful, you might wake up on someone else's couch again.
Oh, I can't believe I did that.
I can't believe you told everyone you did that.
Well, live and learn, mate. Live and learn. He's got. Speaking of knives. That time that I did wake up, like I mentioned, the time that I did wake up in someone else's house, he literally had samurai swords everywhere along his walls. Like there was not one spot that didn't have a samurai sword. My first initial thought was, I don't know where I am. I should probably run. But then my second thought was, I'm really hungover. I think I can talk this out.
Yeah. Well, waking up to a face full of knives, that's sure to wake you up.
But even this character's the design on the scales, and I guess they must be gills on the side there. That's just exceptional sculpt work. But for some reason, when I first saw this, and I guess it's because I collected Star Wars, was that this wasn't a sea creature necessarily, but a space alien. But you're saying it's a sea creature.
Yeah. I think part of the reason they came up with the character was you had the Red Shadows, basically sort of an infantry based army.
Right.
They were beginning to introduce the idea of the Robo Skull vehicle, which of course can fly. So you've got like your ground army, your air / space force, with the Red Wolf flying his Robo Skull around. But they didn't actually have any kind of seagoing contingent to fight Action Force's Navy team, which was Q Force.
Right.
So I get the feeling that they went for sort of a very kind of sci-fi look to the character, and the idea that it is like a mythological creature, the Kraken, and it was generated through cloning, that sort of thing. I think they did that to sort of appeal to the sort of the sci-fi kids like myself. My older brother was more into like the Z Force Army and the SAS, and the sort of more sci-fi element of it, Space Force and so on. That sort of appealed to me. And my younger brother, he had a mixture of Space Force and Q Force, that sort of thing. But I think that's part of the reason they went for that kind of outlandish design. But also, it was to give Q Force an adversary. They didn't really have anyone to fight out in the open water.
Right.
So I think that was a big part of it too. In the comics, in Battle Action Force, they did sometimes, excuse me, they would draw like the Red Shadow soldiers, but they would like modify them so they're wearing like scuba gear and flippers, but the overall uniform still looked very much like a Red Shadow. And a lot of fans, even nowadays, kind of look at those drawings and think, "Wow, if only the Palitoy run had lasted a little longer before the Hasbro takeover, we might have ended up with some of those Red Shadow scuba guys as action figures."
Right.
But after Action Force took off and they started doing the mail away figures, we never did get those scuba shadows. But after a while, they introduced the Kraken, and I think that they did a really good job of filling up that missing piece in the Red Shadow army. The fact that they now had someone who could take on Q Force at sea.
Yeah. So I think having, because when you're growing up with the brothers, you do if you're collecting the same stuff, you do often get the explosion of toys for one set, one group of action figures. Like if I got a GI Joe and my brothers got GI Joes, then we had a large group of GI Joes to play with. And I'm thinking that if we had Action Force as a kid, we might have gravitated towards different sections of Action Force or different units of Action Force as well. And that would help to boost your numbers as far as your collection is concerned. And so long as your brothers were okay with you that day, you could all play together nicely, or you could borrow their toys for the afternoon if they didn't want to play. If you weren't getting along with your brother, it was like, no, that's mine. You're not playing with it. Doesn't matter. You're not having it.
That's exactly how it went. You're right.
Yeah. But I wonder, is the torso section, is that a part of anything else? Is this all new sculpted figure from top to tail?
Yeah,
but
I'm
there is no tail.
I'm pretty sure the whole thing was entirely new sculpt. Now that you pointed out, that torso maybe could have been used or incorporated into another figure, like maybe a Red Shadow scuba diver or something like that. But as far as I know, that was unique to this figure.
Well, because when we went through some of the previous figures, it didn't occur to me that any of them had reused any of the parts, just because of the way that they were painted. It didn't initially strike me as, those two figures are essentially the same. It wasn't until you pointed it out that it became more apparent, which just goes to show how good these character designs are, that they could take a simple body and reuse it. Muton, that's great use of parts for that figure. I would never have guessed that was a scuba diver, but I was wondering, and that's why I'd asked about this guy, because I was wondering if this was potentially come from something else, because you could have easily done it the way that they've designed it with the legs and the arms. The torso itself could have essentially been any diver or any spacesuit or whatever. I reckon this guy would look really cool with Bosk from the Bounty Hunters and Star Wars before they ruined it. Yep. Yeah. So team him up with the Gorn and Bosk, and you've got yourself a good trio of dragon-looking or lizard-looking characters. But he would make a pretty good bounty hunter.
Yeah, and they would have he would have fitted in perfectly with Bosk, as we've mentioned previously. Palitoy had the license for Kenner's Star Wars range in the UK and across Europe. So they would have been using Kenner's molds, but manufacturing Bosk and all the others here in the UK. Well, the UK is below me, of course. I'm hovering above gently, even as we speak. But down below, they're manufactured in the same factory that the Action Force guys would have been made in.
So yeah, you want to let Traces for Trigger know the accessory situation for this guy, for the Kraken.
Oh, yep. It would have been a small trident, just sort of a single-handed weapon, not a great big long trident, and a net. Looks like a fishing net. But I'll just show you this.
Yep.
So yeah, this.
Oh, hang on. Let me bring you up. Let me bring you up. See if I can get it as clear a shot as we can get. Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Skeletron figure.
Right.
And you can kind of see. There we go. Very cool looking sculpt. The very cool looking kind of robotic skull, but the limbs are really thin and spindly. So we always kind of worried that, was that just something they threw out in a hurry?
Right.
Whereas this guy is a much more substantial figure.
Yeah, I'd never seen that other guy before. Skeletron. I can see why they named him like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was originally going to be. Oh, actually, I've just noticed on this page there's a copy of the little note that they would have sent to my older brother, but I'll refer to that in a moment. But yeah, Skeletron was originally going to be the pilot of the Roboskull vehicle, and his name was going to be Roboskull. And then apparently some of the executives were kind of looking at the planned rollout and said, no, wait a minute. That vehicle, that should be called Roboskull. He should be called something else. They came up with the name Skeletron. So the Roboskull vehicle itself, that ended up being flown by this guy, Red Wolf, instead.
Right. Yeah.
A much beefier and burlier looking figure than Skeletron. Also quite rare because, of course, the bigger and more elaborate the play sets, the more expensive they were, the fewer people had them, and you could only get Red Wolf with the Roboskull.
Right.
So yeah, if you can pick one up on eBay, you're a luckier person than I am.
Right.
Actually, Super 7 recently put out a figure. I think it was called Draco Knuckle Duster, and it was one of their like reaction figures, which of course are based on the whole 5 points of articulation, 3 3/4 inch sculpt. And the idea is that they've got several of these figures, like Phantom Star Killer and characters like that, which were originally made by customizers who were like kit bashing different figures together.
Right. Yeah.
And the torso and head of this Draco Knuckle Duster character is taken directly from Red Wolf. So you might be able to pick up one of those. A little easier than the original Red Wolf. They do look very cool. But yeah, getting back to the Skeletron, the letter says, "Dear Action Force fan, with compliments, you recently sent in for a commander figure. Unfortunately, stocks are now exhausted, so please accept Skeletron as an alternative. Here's a mysterious new enemy creature created by Baron Ironblood's laboratories. He works alongside the evil Kraken with the aim of defeating Action Force, the Palitoy Company. We hope you find him a useful addition." So yeah, that's the note my brother got with his Skeletron figure, even though we had in actual fact received the commander figure. So
yeah, right. So was there mention of Kraken there the first instance that it had been brought up as a character?
I'm not sure if this was the first mention of him, or whether it would have been in the comic book Battle Action Force.
Right.
I'm not sure which of the two we would have received first. But
So is Skeletron and Kraken, are they considered like a legion of creatures, or are they single characters?
Skeletron wasn't used all that much, to be honest. So I'm not sure. I don't think I ever saw more than one of him at any one time. But the Kraken, there was certainly, as you say, legions of Kraken.
Right.
In that first appearance on the cassette tape, they basically come out of the sea and surround the Z-Force base. There's so many of them; they're able to completely encircle the base. I've got the Kraken's page here.
Oh yes.
In the book, the wonderful book, as I mentioned before, by Jim the Baron Marshall from Blood for the Baron website, bftb.uk. And
Very great website. I've been doing a deep dive into there recently, so very recommended.
It says here, codename Kraken, underwater combat, deep sea sabotage, birthplace frozen waste of the North Pole, discovered in suspended animation, frozen solid in the polar ice cap. There's a guy on YouTube, the Kraken Wakes. He does he sells a lot of items on eBay as well. It's the same guy, and his introduction on his videos is actually a Kraken in the actual action figure of a Kraken in a block of ice, defrosting and coming out of the ice. It's kind of sped up. So
that's cool.
He's reenacted it. Yeah, discovered in suspended animation, frozen solid in the polar ice cap. Baron Ironblood took the Kraken back to his secret laboratories and manufactured an army of clones. So that's where the cloning aspect comes in. Equally dangerous on land or in water, possessing superhuman strength and a stun net that can knock out even the toughest troops, a fearsome undersea creature strikes terror into the heart of anyone he encounters.
Right. Well, it would, yes. Magnificent Kaboom also adding that same there with the Red Shadow's leader, Baron Ironblood, frozen in a block of ice. The polar ice cap.
Kaboom knows his stuff.
Oh yeah. So if I can bring out this guy, we can reenact their discovery.
Aha, there he is. The Baron.
I want him in a scuba suit, and I want my logo on his chest, please.
Let's take him back to our base and clone him.
I must have more. Yeah, that is cool. It's such an out there character. So you guys had this mail away as a kid or no?
No, we didn't have that one. Eventually they did release him carded.
Right.
You can see over here. But yeah, he was quite a rare one. So unfortunately we didn't have him at the time.
Were you aware of him as an action figure though?
Yeah, he was in the comic book, and you know, we'd seen pictures of the figure as well, so we knew he was out there. But some, as you know, with your Sergeant Slaughter collection, some figures are easier to find than others.
Right. Yeah. So that brings me to another question. So with G.I. Joe, a lot of the consensus is that it was a really good military toy line, and then it got a bit wacky and it got a bit crazy, and they started adding in aliens, and that's when a lot of people sort of dropped off. But I was wondering what the consensus was with the British kids with Action Force seeing characters like this pop up. Was that just as cool as the military aspect of it for you guys?
I think because the Kraken, the figure was a one-off, although he represented many characters because of the Krakens were all clones of each other. He was just a sort of a one-off in the toy range. That generally the range as a whole still had that kind of very sort of fantasy military vibe to it.
Yeah.
They went for outlandish color schemes. I think because that always appeals to little kids.
Yeah.
In reality, you would have your soldiers would be wearing khaki and camo and stuff like that.
Right.
They wouldn't necessarily, hundreds of years ago, when wars were fought, everyone had like a colored uniform, so you could see whose side, which soldiers belonged to which side. But that was when wars were fought with huge ranks of soldiers, huge, like a phalanx of soldiers, marching across battlefields towards each other with handheld weapons, or maybe eventually muskets and things like that.
Right.
When warfare developed into trench fighting and then fighting in the countryside and so forth, to be wearing a bright blue uniform or a bright red uniform would be suicide. So in real life nowadays, of course, your soldiers are doing their best to stay hidden. You got those fantastic ghillie suits they wear nowadays to blend in with foliage, and even urban camouflage now. So for kids growing up in the 80s, I think if all of your military figures had been the same color green, it probably wouldn't have sparked their imagination too much, because there would not have been as much variety. Obviously, as I say, in real life, that's what you're going for. You don't want there to be variety. But for a range of toys to make the bad guys bright red and call them Red Shadows, and to give them a bright red uniform and all their vehicles bright red, I think that was a good move. I think in terms of appealing to children, I think that was a wise thing to do.
Well, red is a very striking color. Like Cobra Blue is all very well and good, but and obviously we're used to it as G.I. Joe fans. But I think red sort of has more of that dreaded feel to it, and then you add blood to the name of Iron Blood, and that gives a little bit more of the reasoning maybe behind the red. But such a great character, such a good look.
There he is. in the comic, the Baron's soldiers, as they ran into battle, they would chant out blood, blood, blood for the Baron.
Right. Yes.
I mean, these days that'd probably be considered a little too, violent.
Yeah.
These days, but back then, they were yelling blood, and the uniforms were like blood red. When the Hasbro takeover happened, as mentioned previously, us little kids at the time, we didn't know that there was any involvement from any other company. We saw the new figures. We didn't know the reason behind it or anything. But when we saw the Crimson Guard, who are the Cobra soldiers who have a completely masked face, completely covered, and they're wearing bright red uniforms, we kind of thought, oh, is this the Red Shadows coming back, perhaps? And I think even though technically, officially, that isn't what was happening, as far as we little kids were concerned, as far as we were concerned, they were Red Shadows. Come on, of course they are.
Yeah. So, Magnificent Kaboom says, "Oh, look, I would hate to mispronounce. You want to give that a crack, Space Commander?"
No, he's right. West Germany, he was known as Baron Eisenblut. I think I got that right. I'm not sure. Baron Eisenblut. And I think in Spain he was El Baron. I don't think they actually had Action Force in Russia, but the idea in the comics was that in Russia he was known as Vagan the Terrible.
Oh, right.
That's cool he was too. He was kind of a mystery character. No one knew his true identity, and he spoke all different languages and would try and he would blend in wherever he went. He had connections in South America. The names like Eisenblut and El Baron, they might, I can't promise anything, but they might come in handy for the special project.
Right, yes. Arguably much cooler names than he would later get known as a Cobra Commander. That's probably one of the cooler names for a character. in my opinion. We've got
No, I
Dale.
agree.
Hello, Dale. Baron Ironblood should be its own character compared to Cobra Commander. Yep, I agree. Also have Cobra and the Red Shadows. It would be a good storyline for the comics. I mean, if you had to, you know, back in the past, and you know, it happened how it happened. But if you had to, I guess ideally it would have been to incorporate Baron Ironblood and the Red Shadows into Cobra and Cobra forces. Like, I guess you're kind of stuck for a few characters, but Destro. Who do they call? Who was Destro in the Action Force before they had to change him back to Destro?
He started out as a member of Action Force called Anton Novikov.
Right.
He then was turned into Red Jackal, the silver-headed cyborg, and then Red Jackal was then turned into Destro when the Hasbro takeover took place. And if the Palitoy characters had been continued, then you could have introduced Cobra Commander as a separate character. And I agree that, I mean, they did it with Masters of the Universe several times. You had He-Man leading the good guys, Skeletor leading the baddies, but then they introduced Hordak leading the Horde, another group of baddies, and they introduced King Hiss leading the Snake Men, another group of baddies. So you had these different factions. If the Palitoy figures had continued, then it would have been great to continue with Baron Ironblood and his Red Shadows, introduce Cobra Commander and another group, Cobra, and you could have carried on like that for years to come. But because once Alfred Pallet had died and Palitoy was broken up, sold off, it basically became the case of Hasbro now owns this IP, but they're not making the figures anymore. Let's bring over the G.I. Joe figures from the States, put them in Action Force packets and sell them. So the actual action figure of Baron Ironblood, in fact, all the Palitoy molds were no longer being used. So I guess they decided to say, well, Baron Ironblood and Cobra Commander are one and the same person. And that was a way of continuing the character without continuing the figure. They were going to use the new figure, but keep him as the same character. Albeit with a kind of a hissing lisp added to his voice.
I don't know how you would explain that, but Dale mentions, I may be the only one to like Cobra Commander in the movie from the animated 1986 G.I. Joe the movie, and he was turned to a snake after revealing his true face. Look, you're not the only one, mate. I've gone on record to say that I think that later Commander in G.I. Joe the movie was, I think it was well done. I think it was well executed. I think it showed the real horror and terror behind the situation, and that what other fitting end would at the time would there have been for Cobra Commander other than to turn him literally into the he was. And that whole scene where he's mutating, that initial mutation looks painfully like it looks so raw, so powerful, so painful what he's going through in that specific moment. But then to truly see him change and fall away from humanity, that in itself must have been filled with pain and fear. And it was a great scene. I liked all of that. All of it. It was very good. Have you got an opinion on that, Space Commander, on the fate of Cobra Commander in the movie?
It was. I've mentioned previously to go from. I mean, we had a bit of a laugh the other time talking about how this is kind of a wacky character, but generally speaking, this was the only really far out bonkers figure in the line. It was the Palitoy Action Force was taken reasonably seriously, and as I say in the comics, characters were getting killed off left, right, and centre. To then go to what we didn't know was the G.I. Joe cartoon at the time. It had Action Force on the front of the video box, so we thought it was like an Action Force product. Action Force in the terms that we had known it is what I mean. And to see that it was really, in some ways, very, very far out and wacky, that was quite surprising to begin with. But we still got into it and enjoyed the characters and get to know the characters. So to see Cobra Commander before he became the commander, and he was in Cobra La, he was a scientist, and he had kind of this strange looking strange colored skin, and then he had those spores explode into his face, and he grew eyes all over his head. That was kind of from a Palitoy Action Force point of view, that was kind of quite bizarre. But from a G.I. Joe Action Force perspective, that was something else. That was really kind of cool, and that sort of explained why he kept covered up, because of you're not going to be able to blend in at a family picnic with that face, are you? So I think that really worked for the character. To then on top of that be turned into a snake, and to have those sort of intermediate stages where he's mutating and turning into a great big snake, like you say, that's some body horror going on there. Quite bizarre and quite disgusting. But I can see why they did it, to kind of move him out of the way, and sort of bring Serpentor into the foreground and even Globulus to some degree, bring him into the foreground as the main villain. But Serpentor was cool, but I never liked him as much as Cobra Commander. His uniform was really over the top. The Serpentor uniform, I personally think, looks best on Monkey Wrench from the Slaughterhouse Wrestling Championship. Monkey King Cobra, something like that.
It was he's the Macho King Cobra is what I ended up calling him.
That's it.
Macho King Cobra.
I thought that looked cool.
It does look cooler on him. Yeah. I'll give you that.
So I was glad when they brought Cobra Commander back. I must admit, I haven't seen much of the Deke series, and I've heard some not exactly glowing reviews of the Deke series, but I have seen that first story arc, Dragonfire, I think it was called, and I was pleased to see that. So I was pleased to see Cobra Commander come back, not entirely human, but more human than he was last time we saw him.
Right. Yeah. So he still looks reptilian. He's lost all the extra eyes. Serpentor became an iguana, which was a surprise to me, because I thought he would have turned into a cobra or a snake. But I like that they still kept some of that mutation. Like, it wasn't a full transition back to his original form. And then we've got Magnificent Kaboom saying the new Action Force comic does provide a good transition story of Baron Ironblood into Cobra Commander. Action Force Redux.
What comic book is that, Kaboom? Is it this one here, perhaps? Is this what you're talking about? Yes.
I think that's it.
Yeah. So if I can just briefly plug this, Jim the Baron Marshall over at bftb.uk. He's done fantastic looking comic. The stories inside are they're like little prequels that you can fit in between the previously established Battle Action Force stories. And you can get these from, I think it's called Get My Comics, website called Get My Comics, or just go to bftb.uk and there'll be links there, which will take you to Baron's on social media. I'm not, but he is. So he's got links on the site now, because it used to be like a forum on there, but nowadays the site is more like a resource site. However, there are links on there, and you can follow him on Twitter and Facebook and all that jazz, and there are links there to Get My Comics to get this.
To get your comics. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and because of I The rights issue is a bit jumbled. So
Right.
as we know, Valaverse has the name Action Force for their new range of Action Force figures. It's funny, my screen is glowing onto this and reflecting its screen back. So yeah, that's the new version 2,
Yeah.
Sarge. So yeah, they've got the name Action Force at the moment. Now, I'm not sure, but I think the character designs. No, wait, the names I think belong to Hasbro. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think the character designs belong to Rebellion Comics, who published 2000 AD and Judge Dredd, and they have the back catalogue of all the IPC comics that came out in the 80s, like 2000 AD and Judge Dredd and the Eagle and Tiger and Leopard of Lime Street and all those old school British comics. And that's one of the fantastic things about the this new comic is they've made them the same sort of size as the old school.
That's cool.
The British comics we had back in the 70s and 80s, so it'll fit in with your old collection as well. But yeah, as I say, I think that there's all kinds of rights issues about who owns what with regards to Palitoy's Action Force. So all the money that is generated by purchasing this comic is all going to charities.
Oh, nice. Okay, very good.
Yeah. So yeah, if you buy this, you're helping people out. But also, Jim, the Baron Marshall, he's put so much effort into sort of protecting the legacy of the original Action Force over the years, but also on the site bftb.uk, as well as the Palitoy range of figures, he's also added the Hasbro ones that came into Action Force later on, and then when they stopped that series completely and switched over in '87 to just purely GI Joe product in Action Force, you know, with their Action Force names on them.
Yeah, all
that is now on the website too. And he actually goes all the way through to, after a few years, they changed the name to G.I. Joe, the Action Force. And then I think that was 1990. And then in 1991, they dropped the name Action Force entirely, and it was just called G.I. Joe. And all of those figures are now viewable on the website. So he's done a lot of work for many years to sort of protect the history of Action Force and its transition into G.I. Joe. So yeah, there's a shout out to my old buddy from back in the olden days of the old forums on bloodforthebaron.com. So yeah, check it out. Action Force Redux.
So we've got another comment from Dale saying, I love the mutation of Cobra Commander and having Roadblock, who's blind by Nemesis Enforcer, protecting Cobra Commander while dragging him through the snow. Yeah, that's a team up nobody thought was going to happen, but it worked.
Dragging him through the snow and rapping the entire time.
Right. Well, speaking of rapping, Cobra Commander wraps himself like a coil around Roadblock at one point during his intense mutation. Magnificent Kaboom, correctly reminding me it's Macho King Cobra. I don't know why that slipped my mind. Dales and says the mutation reminded me of Dr. Doom 2, Cobra Commander hiding this face of the metal mask. Yeah, so I used to collect Fantastic Four, Marvel Comics as a whole. I used to collect them quite regularly in the 80s and the 90s. But I seem to remember at one point when I was reading that Dr. Doom wasn't as scarred as he made out to be. It was just like just a small little scar that he imagined made him look really ugly. But they may have.
I remember the Marvel Superhero Secret Wars, which came out in 1984, and you had like a selection of heroes and villains scooped up from Earth and put on this battlefield planet. This alien character, the Beyonder, wanted to, it was kind of like Star Trek. They did an episode called The Savage Curtain, which is a brilliant episode. It features Abraham Lincoln in space. I mean, what more could you want? Right.
Right.
It's also got Robert Heron played Kalis the Unforgettable for the first time, the Klingon character. Bob Heron died just recently, sadly.
Oh, yeah.
You know, one
Rest
of
in
my
peace.
Klingon heroes, but I got his
Yeah, yeah.
autograph.
Oh, very good.
But yeah, it's a similar situation where this alien, the Beyonder, he wanted to see examples of good and evil. So he
Yeah,
puts
yeah,
these
yeah.
characters, a group of heroes, a group of villains on this planet to see what methods they use. And at one point, Doctor Doom, he sort of absorbs the power of the Beyonder into himself and becomes kind of supremely powerful. And of course, the first thing he does is he fixes his face. And for the first time in the comic, I'd never seen it before. You know, I was only a little kid at the time. He takes his mask off, and underneath he's got the square jaw and the chiseled cheekbones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like Don Johnson from the 80s, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we got to see him without the mask, and yeah, he wasn't all. He didn't look like a hamburger underneath after all. So.
No, and I think he took on Galactus too, if I recall.
Yeah, yeah.
Knocking him down. So how well can you do a Roadblock impression? Because Magnificent Kaboom has just given us this little nugget from the movie. You want to give that a crack?
Probably not at the moment. If we were recording this instead of doing it live,
might have a few cracks at it. Yeah.
I could take a break and I could you know.
All right.
Hydrate my throat because, well, because you know, we kind of joke about on the channel, but I do a fair few voices. But there's a certain amount. Some voices. I always think of voices as being separate gears in your voice box, and some voices are very close to the way you speak, and you can slip into them very easily. And then there are other voices which are like the fifth gear or reverse. They're the far away voices that take some effort to get to. So you know, I wouldn't want to just say, oh yeah, I can definitely do Roadblock and then screw it up live on a stream.
Well, you do a fantastic Cobra Commander, but you also do Action Man in the Slaughterhouse Wrestling Championship. So there's Action Man. There's also, other than Cobra Commander for that commercial that we did, there's also the Bulldog.
That's right.
You did the Bulldog on that episode. I'm trying to remember if you'd done anyone before Bulldog. Is it just those two? Bulldog and
I think
Action Man so far?
Actually, yeah, I think Bulldog was the first one you asked me to do.
Right.
And on the one hand, I thought, you know, because I grew up in East Anglia, which does have an accent, but it's quite far from the kind of northern accent. And up north, there are several different accents. So, you know, I've once heard someone say that in England, the accent changes every 10 miles. And it may sound like an exaggeration, but it's true. A place I worked at years ago, it was based in a town. We had several small villages around it, and people used to drive into the town from the villages to do their work. And there was one girl, she was from a village slightly further out than the rest of us. And you could tell from the way, you know, she talked, she had a slightly different accent already, and just by being a few miles further away. So when you get up north and you've got like Manchester and Lancashire, and on the east you've got Newcastle, and on the west you've got Liverpool, just in that small area, the accents are so drastically different. So when you said, how'd you like to come on and do the Bulldog's voice? On the one hand, I thought, you know, what a great thing for someone to ask. You know, do you want to come on the show and do voices? So of course I said yes. And the whole time I'm thinking, how the heck am I going to do this? But luckily, I'd worked with a guy who was from Lancashire, so got chatting with him and picked up some words and phrases and tried to do like a deeper voice like Bulldog, bless him. So yeah, that's kind of how that started, and then that kind of spun off. It's like, oh well, how would you like to be one of the presenters? How'd you like to be Action Man as well? And then of course the whole Cobra Commander thing. Didn't I send you that as like a little gag or something? I'd like recorded some voices.
Yeah.
And then in
you sent me
them,
some audio files. You sent me some audio files as a joke as Cobra Commander, but you were saying you were Copacabana.
Copacabana.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? This is a joke, but it's actually very good. It's actually a very good representation of Cobra Commander. So that's how you got that gig as well. But I think your voices are very different. Like, I can't tell. If I didn't know, I wouldn't be able to pick that it's the same person doing Action Man, the Bulldog, and Cobra Commander. So I just got to figure out where and how I'm going to put Cobra Commander into the Slaughterhouse Wrestling Championship. But I think we've figured out maybe how. We'll get onto that another day. But as far as voices are concerned, I can't do a lot of voices. Like, I can't just jump into doing a Sarge voice. And I know my Sarge voice can kind of get to a little bit too like Christian Bale Batman at times. So I've got to dial it back a little and just let myself just chill for a bit before going back.
Where's the trigger?
Right. Swear to me. Where is she? But then the hardest one that I do that just I think it works for the comedic effect of but it doesn't work as a really good impression is the Macho Monkey Wrench. I can't for the life of me do a consistent good man impression, and if you listen to it, especially the first go that I did as the teaser for Macho Monkey Wrench, he sounds like between Bill Cosby and Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. It's just not very good.
No, it weren't that bad, mate.
Just go back and hear the original end bumper. I think it was at the back end of might have been the back end of the Nemesis Enforcer match. Because I think after Nemesis Enforcer was Macho Monkey Wrench in the cage match, if I'm not mistaken. But definitely just check out that back bumper at the end of that and tell me you can't hear Bill Cosby and Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. You won't be able to unhear it. Because I heard it and I was like, oh, my throat was. I was like, I'm not doing it again. It's fine. It's a little bit. It's a little bit out there, but it's fine. It works for him. But doesn't work. I couldn't go out there and pretend to be Macho Man, but I think that's a fun series, though, and I'm freak out. We'll jump back to some Red Shadow stuff in a sec, but I want to say the thing about, and Magnificent Kaboom has been a big supporter of the Slaughterhouse Wrestling Championship, big supporter of the channel with all his animations and stuff that he does. Big fan, buddy. I hope you know you're appreciated. You're appreciated by both men here doing this right now. That there's always a bit of Magnificent Kaboom when we do these because of the symbol at the top there. But yeah, I do hope you know you're appreciated. But the good thing about the Slaughterhouse Wrestling Championship is that I get to have all my friends come and play. You know what I mean? It's like having your friends come over and play. So we get to do voices, we get to muck around. It's all good fun. But yeah.
I sent it to someone recently. I sent the clip and said, clip on this if you want to see what a bunch of middle-aged men do together on the internet.
That's how it is, yeah. Top shelf. Keep up the great work. I use, just so you know, Magnificent Kaboom. I use the phrase top shelf regularly now, and it's because of you that I use it. I never used it before, but now in my everyday life, something will come up and go, oh, top shelf. So back to Shadows. Dale says, Red Scatto's skull ship, it always reminded me of a Star Wars TIE fighter, same as the Crimson Guard compared, same as the Emperor's Red Guard. I agree. It does look a lot like a TIE fighter. It looks like you remember Warhammer 40K where you would see I'm just presuming you remember this. So we haven't ever had a conversation about Warhammer 40K. But in Warhammer 40K, you've got the regular Marines vehicles and ships and stuff, and then you've got the Chaos version. And I think that the Red Shadows skull. What's a skull ship called? The
Robo Skull.
What's it called? Robo Skull. Right. So the Robo Skull looks like a Chaos version of a TIE fighter. Stormtroopers compared to Cobra soldiers. Look, I'm a bit off of. I like the look of Stormtroopers. But after watching the latest episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi, where they literally have them funneled in and they can't hit it. I mean, I know that a running gag is that Stormtroopers can't hit anything, but how can you not hit something directly in front of you a few feet away? They ruined it.
You see, they ruined it. They ruined it. Yeah. I mean, the stormtroopers in George Lucas's Star Wars, it was kind of an on-running gag that they couldn't always hit the target. But you saw plenty of the poor old rebels, getting whacked, especially like the Battle of Hoth and scenes like that.
Yeah.
But now
you see also the opening
ridiculous.
the opening scene in A New Hope with the rebel soldiers getting gunned down in that hallway. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, the deck is littered with poor old rebel guys.
So speaking of Action Force, I think it was Call Sign Longbow. I need to look it up. I think Call Sign Longbow recently announced that they're doing a figure that looks. Ken mentioned that it looks like someone from Action Force. Are you familiar with that figure that's coming out?
No, I saw an image of the first teaser image they did. But if you've got a more recent update, then lay it on me, Daddy-O.
Oh, okay. So I found it. It's I need a Daddy-O. Let's see. I hope that doesn't catch on. I'm your host, Daddy-O. I got a picture. I've got to find a closer picture, but this guy apparently, I can't remember who Ken said that looked like from Action Force.
Oh wait, I see. They've put the Special Weapons Force logo on his bang hat on his lid.
Right.
So yeah, he looks a bit like Bombardier.
Okay.
Bombardier was the mystery figure. A couple of I think it was one guy in particular who again used to be on BFTB.UK. Yeah, looks like him. He was doing research on a lot of the the history of Palitoy's Action Force, and discovered. I think it was at the V&A Museum, the toy museum. He discovered sealed away some several figures and various images of figures that had been sort of prototyped but had never actually been released. Now for years there had been like images surfacing every now and then of this character who looked a lot like this gentleman here, looked a lot like Flash, Laser Trooper. I don't have his cable plugged into his backpack because I'm worried, because this figure is like nearly 40 years old, and I'm worried if I tweak that into the backpack it's going to snap. So,
yeah, fair enough.
So it's just poking straight up into the air at the moment. But yeah, a character looked like Flash but was in a grey and yellow uniform, whereas this is green and red. He was grey and yellow, and naturally people kind of thought it was a G.I. Joe because it was a Hasbro mold. It was the mold they had used for Flash. So when this gentleman from BFTB UK had he actually found the figure, or one example of the figure, at the museum, and it was what do you call it? Those little poly bags you get, a baggy sort of thing. I can't think what they're called at the moment.
Yep.
But there were several of these figures bagged up, and they had like I think they had SWF written on the bags or something like that. And it turns out this was Special Weapons Force, and this was it was going to be a group within Action Force. You had like the Z Force as the Army, the Infantry, Q Force at sea, Space Force in space, of course, and SAS were like Special Forces. Special Weapons Force was going to be this other group, and yeah, it turns out that Bombardier was part of that group. So he was actually, although they used a Hasbro mold to make him, he was actually a Palitoy character, Palitoy figure, and but he was part of this group that didn't get released. And after Hasbro took over, and no more Palitoy was going to get released at that point. So he never came out at the time, but in the years since, obviously these guys are making a sort of perhaps an unofficial version of him. But yeah, there have been a couple of sort of official releases over the years, but that original 1980s version of Bombardier, I don't think it ever saw a proper full release. So for them to release a version for Longbow, I think that'd be cool, because people can like get a version of it to keep in their collection. And I don't know how much I should say. I've done a bit of writing in my time, and I was working on a project for Blood for the Baron, where we at the time we were looking into possibly could we secure the rights to do Action Force figures, to bring Action Force back. This is before Bobby Valor started up his fantastic Valorverse figures, but we wanted to make figures like the way they had been in the 80s, although expanding the range to introduce new characters. And we've sort of looking at the possibilities. There was one guy who was a solicitor, and he was looking into getting ownership of the name. There was some other guy who was involved in manufacturing. He was looking at factories in China that could do the production. And so this small group of us, we all had our own little jobs within this kind of a production group. And mine was going to be to write the backstory to explain what had happened to Action Force previously and where it might be going in the future. And all this happened at about the same time that Bombardier was found in this British Museum. So you know, for years we all thought he was an American character, G.I. Joe. It turns out that he was in a royally established museum in the UK. So I thought, wow, we've got to use this character. So I very quickly kind of hastily came up with a background for him, and because of the royal connection, obviously because he was Action Force now, I made him English. I said that he was sort of he was known to royalty and had been named to the royal court and all this very elaborate kind of stuff. And so I kind of wrote this backstory for him. The project eventually, as you probably people watching can tell, because of they won't remember any of this, it's because the project didn't go ahead in the end. We found out that that Hasbro didn't just own the name at that point. They owned pretty much all the background details as well, lock, stock, and barrel. And if we'd have gone for it at that point in history, we'd have legally been in hot water very quickly. So the project was shelved, and then all these years later, of course, Bobby Valor, who had worked previously at Hasbro and knew what was going on with regards to who owned what and the who, what, where, when, and whys of it, he was able to then bring out his version of Action Force instead. But I still remember the ideas we came up with for the story, and maybe someday something might happen. Maybe we'll see.
You never know. Watch this space. Top shelf. Keep up the great work,
Commander.
Nice. Good. Yep, I love a good pun. Great work. Well, Magnificent Kaboom, you do great work. I've got your. Which way do I go with this camera? I got your video in the background there. I played it earlier. You can see the logo of Space Commander up on the corner there. Justin, channel member Justin. Hi, Zazel. Hey, Justin. Thanks for tuning in. he was concerned this was just going to be the Space Commander song, which I think it's either you either love it or you hate it. And
I got a fantastic communique from one of my many nephews this week. I was kind of touched and creasing up with laughter at the same time because of he just sent this little message saying, "What a very beautiful song, lol."
Lol.
I thought it was great that so the younger generation are watching your show and watching us have fun and do all the crazy stuff we do.
Well, it is just fun. It's a good hangout. There's a difference. I think there's a difference between Justin thinks it's funny. Oh, good, because it was supposed to be funny. It didn't occur to me at all until Space Commander. There was a comment in the chat that pinpointed that specific moment of when you hit time in the comment, it takes you right to that point. And I was like, well, he is really singing it, isn't he? And then it occurred to me that it would be hilarious to turn that into a song. And I was like, I'm going to dedicate this to Space Commander and put a little bit of effort into it. It's meant to be fun, but I do hope you appreciate that it was done out of fun and friendship. Both those things, fun and friendship.
Yeah, I love it. It's funny. Yeah. I showed it to Mrs. Space Commander, and at the end, where the caption comes up and says like, "For my friend Space Commander," something like that. She goes, "Whoa, people are going to think you've died."
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, I can see that.
So I was like,
all right.
I was like, no, let's put some people, encourage people to talk about it in the comment section, and hopefully they'll convey the idea that I'm not dead yet.
Sing, yeah, such a great tune. I couldn't not do it, and then I think the original one that I didn't have quite as many graphics in the background. I was like, you know what, I'm going to add some stars, the moon. I almost put a rocket in it. I was like, where do I draw the line? Like, I got to stop somewhere. I spent more time on that than I probably should have, but I'm glad that I did it because I put it as a joke. I put it on what's it called, TikTok. I put it on TikTok, right?
All right.
It's the only thing that I've ever uploaded onto TikTok, and I don't think I'll ever upload anything ever again on TikTok. But the funny thing is that my son came out the other day and said, I saw this video and I clicked on it, and it was that damn Space Commander song. So he didn't even follow me or anything on TikTok. But it somehow came into his recommendations to watch it. I don't know how social media works in that fashion, but he found it, pressed it, and he's like, wonder what this is. And I was like, Space Commander. Should have put a rocket. Ah, damn it. Next time on the sequel for when Space Commander, it's a bit morbid to think that the end makes it seem like, dedicated to the memory of Space Commander.
Well, you could
very alive. Look, he's very alive.
Well, I'm alive now, but one day I won't be. So you could save it for when I actually do peg out.
Yeah, okay. I'll keep one. Jeez, at least it's nice to have one in the bag, isn't it?
Yeah.
A very touching goodbye to Space Commander when he finally in memoriam. You know what? Let's do it. Let's do it one more time for the kids. In memory of Space Commander, my friend, in memoriam.
Oh.
Space Commander. 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 Space Commander.
Now, that's all I can see now. Is that it's a farewell? Oh, damn it! Oh, he will be missed.
I like the freeze frame image in that video. It's better than the freeze frame image from the previous video we did, where the batteries ran out and my camera packed up.
Yeah.
And, I'm trying really hard not to laugh during this stream that you and I are doing right now, in case it packs up again. Yeah, and I'm left frozen in this kind of laughing gurn. It made it look like I had this huge. I don't have a George Lucas double chin, but I did in that freeze frame.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying not to laugh at all.
He died, and we shot him into space. Hence the rocket. Yeah. Well,
that would be cool. That would be cool.
When that unfortunate one day I'll put a rocket in there as his final goodbye. Oh, geez. I'm going to get after Zaza with a stick. He tricked me. I did play it after all. Emotional stuff. I know. Fantastic. Interstellar. You know what? You are in a unique spot where you get to see your fitting in memoriam video before you've passed on. So, may we all be so lucky that we see how much we're appreciated in life before we move on. But you are appreciated.
Yeah, you make me look real good.
Well, if you freeze in a place that I can use, then yeah, that helps. Some of that the logo. I used the Magnificent Kaboom logo to spin around on your hat. I was like, how much can I add? Okay, I've got to add the logo. I'll put the spinning logo on there. When your camera, I don't know if you noticed it on the latest episode. I don't know if it's released yet, but the latest episode, I think it was part 3 of our catch up with Sergeant Mark Potter. Shout out to Sergeant Mark Potter. Good guys. Believe it or not, Sarge's a good guy. Can you believe it? They say never meet your heroes, but I'm glad I did. So in that
real
episode,
sweetheart.
Yeah. Your camera cuts out, and I was like, well, I can't just have a black screen. So I put your logo in there spinning. You're like, can you hear me okay? Yeah, anyway, check it out.
That little image of me pops up with the speech bubble and everything. It made me laugh because that was the bit of, obviously when the solar batteries packed up and all my technology failed. That was the part of the show that I didn't get to experience. So when you released it as a video, I started watching it, and of course we're all talking, and I'm thinking, I remember this at the time. I remember us talking about this. And then when it packs up, I'm then experiencing for the first time the part of the show that I didn't get to take part in when we did it live. So then the logo pops up and starts rotating. And then this little picture of me pops up with a speech bubble. And for a second, I thought to myself, did it do that at the time? No. Of course it didn't do that at the time.
Oh, man.
Zazel added that later, of course,
Yeah.
I don't know.
For a bit of humor.
I don't know.
For a bit of humor.
I don't know.
I didn't think anyone would appreciate it but us. So Justin says his in memoriam video would be a train hitting a wall with WWE's Mankind theme playing Here Lies Crash. There you go. All right. That's it. Yeah. All right. I'll keep that in mind. Sarge is amazing. Your guys' chat with number one Renegade is super. Yeah, that was a fun hangout. It was in secret. That whole thing was Space Commander. I didn't know Sarge was going to be on there, and Mark only knew that day, I think, that Sarge was going to be on there because it was a big surprise. We had to try and tee it up so everyone could be on there at the same time. And Sarge was gracious enough to get up on at I think it must have been before 6 time, specifically to hang out with us. So it was very early for Sarge, and I appreciate the fact that he did that. He didn't have to, but he wanted to, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I didn't know. I had no idea that we'd all be hanging out and talking. I thought we were doing incoming transmission. I had piles and piles of Palitoy stuff all around me, thinking, I'll need this. I'll grab these and I can show Zazel as we're talking about them. No, didn't use any of it.
It was a good hangout though. Well, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah. Oh, it was great. It was great to meet Mark. That was the first time we'd met, albeit virtually. You guys had spoken about him before, and sounded like a great guy, but I'd never actually had any interaction with him myself. So that was great to meet him, and of course to meet Sarge again. I never thought I'd get to meet him again, albeit over the internet. I never thought I'd get to meet him. Full stop. Let alone to get to meet him, on more than one occasion. So yeah, right. that was great. Thanks for contacting the space station and getting us to hook up the satellites and send down the beams and get us all hooked up together. That was great. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. And there was a comment that was made after we went off air that made me think that Sarge legitimately thinks that you're beaming a signal from space.
I am legitimately beaming my signal from space, remember?
That's what I mean. He's fully he understands that's the reality of it. Yeah. Sarge understands the reality that you're beaming your transmission from space.
I have to send the signal down to Earth and bounce it off a few satellites to get it to you. But I'm up here floating around. Try not to bang my head or get covered in sick like we discussed last time.
Your signal at the moment is probably the best it's ever been.
I've been trying to work out a few technical bugs. Touch wood.
Oh yeah.
Hopefully it's working.
Well, yeah. I'm surprised you haven't cut out yet.
I'm from the Atari generation, I'm trying to get by with what I got,
Yeah. Oh man, the Atari. I've seen some go for sale locally, and I'm tempted to, but I don't want to. Like, I've got such a great memory of the Atari that I would hate to dive back into it and then give myself any kind of disappointment. Right, like I know how the games look, and I know how they play, and I know how it is. I know all of that, but it's got such a good memory attached to it that I want to just leave it alone. I don't want to sully it. But it would be, I don't know. Same with some of the older games that I used to think were the best. I've found sometimes with TV shows, we're like, oh, this is the best TV show. You go back to it, and it's like, oh, what was I thinking? I don't want to do that with the Atari, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So, what are we going to do on our next episode of Incoming Transmission? I think part of it will be comic conversation. I will start reading from where you told me to start reading from, and that will probably help me because I've purposely, while going through this box and discussing some of the new characters that you've sent me, I've purposely kept away from too much information so that I'm hearing it firsthand, right? Because you got such a passion about these characters that I'd much rather learn about this guy from your experiences than just read it. But I think we're coming to a point now where I've almost exhausted the figures that I have from in here. I'm trying to remember. I did have that other character that you sent me, but I've put him in the box here, so I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly which one he was.
There was another German stormtrooper.
Yeah.
And of course,
was it this one? This guy, right?
Masters Ric Flair.
That guy, because it comes with all the bits and pieces for the vehicle. So we'll bring the vehicle up next time too, so that we can have a chat about that, chat about the comic. But thanks for sending me. You've already sent me so much, and you sent me some more stuff, and it's just you're too nice.
Well, it's like I was saying in I think it was like the first episode or maybe the second episode. I mentioned that although I'm not usually just gathering up piles of toys and sending them across the planet to someone I've at the time only just met. That's not a usual thing I would do. But because of you and I are looking at doing this special project, a lot of these figures are something, or you know, an element that we're going to need if we do go ahead and do it. So it's not simply a case of just gathering up loads of figures and sending them off. It's a case of these are a cast of characters that we can put to use. So it's beneficial, to, not just to you, but also to me, and hopefully to other people if we go ahead with it. So yeah, it is partially for myself as well. It's going to be something that we can work on and hopefully produce something. However, having said that, I did receive this week a large box came up in the supply rocket. Now, I knew that this gentleman was going to arrive.
Oh yes, let me bring him up. Hang on.
Okay.
Action Man.
This chap here, Action Man, one of the voices that I do on the show. When I was a kid, my brothers and I, we had the 12-inch Action Man. I did not know until talking to Sergeant Zazel that there was a 3 3/4-inch Action Man as well. So I knew this gentleman was coming up in the supply rocket, and I have put him on the shelf next to this guy. So
nice.
I play this guy, and I am this guy. I did know that this gentleman here was coming as well, Condor from the Valorverse version of Action Force.
Very cool.
I was after this character because in the original Action Force, one of the main characters was the SAS squad leader Eagle, and this new character is also an SAS squad leader. He's got the Union Jack, Union flag on his armor there, and he's called Condor, bird of prey like Eagle. So I was very intrigued to get this character as well. I should just mention just quickly, the Sergeant Slaughter came from Toys-R-Us here in the UK. Some of these figures are quite hard to get over in Great Britain, which is where my supply rockets usually launch from. But the supply rocket from Australia, but this gentleman here, who I knew was coming, but then also this huge box also included Bone Collector, Steel Brigade, Kerak, and pretty much every variation of the Republic Guard, pretty much every weapon and ammunition crate as well. I was absolutely shocked and gobsmacked. But I just want to say thank you very much to my good friend Sergeant Zazel and his wonderful family for hooking me up with this huge box of figures. Just I totally wasn't seeing that at all. Yes, it was like Christmas all over again.
Well, I knew you were chasing Condor, and the only way to get Condor was to get that entire lot. Right? I couldn't just my hookup said I've got this, and you've got also all of this. So I was like, okay, I'll take it. And then my my plan all along was to send you that entire lot. But the finding a box to all of that was tricky, because the original box that got sent to me had also been sent with other stuff, and the box was way too big to send. I had to find a more appropriately sized box, but it was like so down to the wire, like how much room was left over. It was literally like, do not cut a blade across this thing. It's very careful how you open it; it might all explode out.
Well, I've got Republic Guards bouncing around in 0G all around me, even as we speak. There are so many Republic Guards; it's quite amazing. Me and Blastoff, we had skipped over to Mars. We were doing a patrol over there, and so I received a communique from Mrs. Space Commander, who was back here on the space station while we were off checking out a possible red shadow sighting on the red planet. And she messaged me to say supply rockets arrived and there's a box here. It's come from Australia. And I was like, oh wow, that'll be that figure. That'll be that figure from Zazel.
Yeah.
She goes, this is a really big box. I don't think there's one figure in there. So I said, oh, well, there might be 2 figures in there. I said. Little did I realise there were 136 figures in there. When I got back to the space station, I couldn't believe my eyes. So thank you very much again.
I'm glad they arrived safe and sound. It took a little while to get there, but
it's a long way up here, you know.
Yeah.
It's a long way to get up out of orbit.
Well, hopefully you get some value out of it. I think some of those accessory packs and the backpacks and stuff look pretty cool. Yeah. It was my absolute pleasure. The least I could do, considering how much you've sent my way. But yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right, well, we'll leave it there on that one. Then on that high note, I like to leave it with me getting some praise. And I guess on that we will dismiss ourselves. But we can't go out without one more ballad of Space Commander to final us out. So on that, I will say you're dismissed.
Thanks to everyone for showing up for the chat.
Yes, thank you, chat. Great stream, great work, top shelf. Thanks for running the cartoons. You're more than welcome, mate. Thanks for doing them. Thank you for spending every moment that you do on these. They do not go unappreciated. I'll tell you that. And within Earth, welcome to the Slaughterhouse. Within Earth orbit, Space Commander can be seen from Manchester once every 90 minutes. Well, thank you everyone for spending over 90 minutes with us today. Time is precious, so I appreciate your time. And with that, Space Commander, it's always a pleasure. You're dismissed, and we'll go out with a couple of cartoons. We'll start with this one.
Welcome to the Slaughterhouse. Let go my legs, sucker. Let go my legs, sucker.
And then we'll get out of here on this one. All right, goodbye, folks.
Space Commander. Space Commander. Space Commander. Space Commander. Space Commander. Space Commander. Space Commander, Space Commander, Space Commander.